It floated at the edge of the galaxy, far from any law. Traders, smugglers, bounty hunters, all came here to buy and sell. There was food, weapons, and sometimes, even living beings. In the center of the outpost was a large market. Bright lights flashed. Robots shouted out deals. Alien smells filled the air. But not everything was full of life. In the shadows near a broken food stall, a woman sat on the cold floor. Her skin was soft blue, almost glowing, but dirty. Her silver hair was messy, her clothes torn. She looked no older than 20 in human years, but her eyes were hollow, like someone who had stopped hoping. Her name was Zahira, and she was starving. No one looked at her. Not the alien merchants, not the robot guards, not even the other beggars. She had tried asking for food. No one listened. She had tried offering her necklace. They laughed. It was fake. Now, with shaking hands, she did something she had never done before. She stood, took one step forward, and spoke in a dry, cracked voice. Please. Food. Anything. I will give you my body if you want. Some aliens turned and smirked. A group of men laughed and walked away. One tossed a moldy fruit at her feet. Starve with some dignity, girl, he said. Zahira didn't pick it up. Her body was too weak. She sat down again, curled up, and closed her eyes. That's when Marcus walked by. He wore a brown coat with a hood, his boots dusty from travel. He looked like a trader or maybe a tired soldier, a human with calm eyes and a sharp jaw. He wasn't rich, he wasn't loud, but he noticed her. He stopped, looked around, then walked over and crouched beside her. You okay? He asked. Zahira didn't open her eyes. Go away. Hungry? She finally opened her eyes and looked at him. Don't joke. I haven't eaten in 3 days. Marcus didn't say anything. He stood, walked to the nearest food stall and bought 2 hot packs of steamed protein bread and a warm energy drink. He came back, placed it beside her, and sat down. Zahira stared at the food like it was a trick. Why? She asked. No one should starve where there's food, Marcus replied. I can't pay. Didn't ask. I offered myself to strangers, she said, ashamed. You don't need to offer anything to me, Marcus said. Just eat. Zahira reached out slowly, her hand shook. She grabbed the food and began to eat like she hadn't tasted anything in years. She didn't speak again until the meal was finished. When she looked up, Marcus was still there. Who are you? She asked. Just a traveler. You? I was, someone once, she whispered. Now I'm nothing. That's not true. You don't know me. He looked at her seriously. I know enough. You're not trash. And you shouldn't have to sell yourself just to live. Zahira looked away. Why are you really helping me? Because when I was on the battlefield, Marcus said, a stranger pulled me from rubble and gave me water. That man didn't know me either, but he saved my life. I've been looking for someone to pass it forward to. Zahira blinked. Nobody had ever said something like that to her. She had been thrown away by her people after the war. Her planet was gone. Her name was erased from the system. She was unclaimed merchandise now, just a body in the galaxy's trash bin. But this man, this human, saw her as a person. She stood slowly, still weak. Where are you staying? Cargo room 23, deck B6. I'm not offering my body, she said quietly. Didn't think you were, Marcus replied. Then why let me come? Because I don't think you've slept safe in weeks. Together they walked toward the lower decks. Other traders watched. Some laughed, some muttered. But Marcus didn't care, and Zahira, for the first time in a long time, felt human again. But in the shadows behind them, 2 eyes followed. A data chip had already been scanned. Zahira's name had a bounty, and someone had just found her. The cargo room was small and dark. A single lamp blinked from the ceiling, casting yellow light over metal crates and old blankets. It wasn't much, but to Zahira it felt like a palace. Marcus placed a blanket on the floor and handed her a water bottle. "You can rest here tonight," he said. "Safe. No one will touch you." Zahira sat down slowly. Her body was still weak, but her mind was racing. She had slept in alleyways, under leaking pipes, and once inside a broken food container. But never in a room with walls and kindness. She watched Marcus move around the room, checking the door, setting up a small sensor near the entrance. "You're not afraid I'll steal from you?" she asked. He looked at her. "What would you steal? My blanket?" She smiled faintly for the first time in weeks. Later, Zahira woke from a nightmare, shaking, covered in sweat. She sat up and looked around. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she saw Marcus asleep in the corner back against the wall, a small laser pistol in his lap. He had stayed awake as long as he could, to protect her. Zahira stared at him. This man, this stranger, had done more for her in a day than anyone had done in years. She felt something inside her chest, not love, not yet, but trust. And for her, that was dangerous. In the morning, the door buzzed. Marcus opened it carefully, weapon ready. A tall, reptilian alien stood there wearing a dirty jacket and sunglasses. "Delivery," he said, handing over a package. Marcus took. "I didn't order anything." The alien shrugged and walked away. Marcus shut the door, opened the package, and froze. Inside was a data pad. The screen lit up with a bounty listing. Target, Zahira of Velon. Status, escaped property. Reward, 25,000 credits. Alive. Client, private, dangerous. Do not engage alone. Zahira gasped. "They found me." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You're being hunted?" She nodded. "I was sold during the war. When my planet fell, I was put into a cargo container. They were moving me across systems. I escaped on this station, but they never stopped looking." Marcus tapped the datapad. "They want you back alive. That means they're still making money from your name." "I'm not even a person to them," she whispered. "Just a thing." Marcus stood up and holstered his pistol. "We'll fix that." Zahira blinked. "We?" "Yes, we," he said. "You're not going to run alone again." They moved quickly. Marcus helped Zahira clean up. He gave her a spare jacket and a data mask to hide her face, but her glowing blue skin still caught eyes. They slipped out into the back corridors of the station, far from the cameras and patrol bots. But someone was already watching. At the far end of the market, 2 bounty hunters sat drinking spicy red brew. One was a thick-horned alien with a long rifle. The other was a small, fast lizard man with a scanner built into his eye. "Got a ping," said the lizard man. "Sector B6. She moved." The horned one grinned. "Time to collect." They stood and followed the trail. Meanwhile, Marcus led Zahira into a hidden tech shop. The owner, a 3-eyed engineer named Vinko, owed Marcus a favor. "I need a face shield and ID scrambler," Marcus said. Vinko glanced at Zahira. "She trouble?" Marcus leaned in. "She's not the problem. The people chasing her are." Vinko nodded and pulled out a tiny silver patch. He pressed it behind Zahira's ear. Her glow faded. Her features blurred slightly, just enough to fool scanners. "She'll pass as human now. For a little while." Marcus paid in old soldier credits. Vinko didn't ask questions. As they walked back, Zahira touched her arm. "Why are you helping me?" Marcus stopped. "Because I've seen what happens when people turn away." She looked into his eyes. "You could leave me. You should. This isn't your fight." He shrugged. "Maybe, but I made a promise once to never walk past someone who needed help. I'm keeping it." Zahira said nothing, but her heart felt lighter. No one had ever promised her anything, not since her world was destroyed. Back in the cargo room, the lights flickered. Marcus grabbed his pistol. A strange smell filled the air, burnt metal and smoke. Then, the wall exploded. The 2 bounty hunters rushed in, weapons drawn. Zahira screamed. Marcus fired. The fight began. The smoke cleared. Marcus stood over the unconscious body of the horned bounty hunter, his pistol still hot. The other one, the lizard-eyed tracker, had escaped through the roof vent, leaving a trail of blood. Zahira sat in the corner, shaking. Her jacket was torn. Her cheek was bleeding. Marcus rushed to her. "You okay?" She nodded slowly, though her voice was gone. Her chest rose and fell fast, like a bird trapped in a storm. "They knew where to find us," she whispered. "Even with the face shield," Marcus cursed under his breath. "That means they've upgraded their tech. They want you bad." Zahira looked at him with tired eyes. "Do you still want to help me?" He paused. Then he sat beside her. "Yes." Zahira didn't cry. She had cried too many times in the past. But her voice trembled as she spoke again. "Do you want to know who I really am?" Marcus looked at her. "Only if you want to tell me." She breathed in deep and began. "My name is Zahira Valrin Vel-An. I was born on the planet Vel-An. I was a daughter of the High House, the royal line. My family led the eastern tribes for over 1,000 cycles." She paused, remembering something far away. "I was a singer. I danced under 2 moons. People used to cheer when I passed. My hair was washed with moonlight oils. My meals were served on glass plates carved from frozen rivers." Marcus stayed silent. He didn't mock her. He didn't laugh. She continued. "When the Galactic War came, my father refused to join either side. He thought we were safe, too far from the front lines. But both sides called him a traitor. One night, ships came without warning. They burned the sky. Our towers fell." Her voice cracked slightly. "I watched from a shuttle as my world turned to fire. I begged them to go back for my mother, my little brother. They said no." She looked down. "My title meant nothing after that. On the refugee ship, I was just another mouth to feed. They sold me to smugglers in exchange for fuel. From there, I was passed through hands like a package." Marcus finally spoke. "They listed you as a bounty?" She nodded. "They said I was property. I escaped near Orion Outpost 7 and hid. But I was too weak. No money. No documents. I tried to trade songs for food, then jewelry. Then..." She couldn't say it. Marcus said it for her. "Then you offered yourself." She flinched, but nodded. "I thought maybe, just once, someone would help. Not out of greed, not out of lust, but out of kindness." She looked up at him. "Then you came." Marcus stared ahead. He thought of all the battles he had survived, all the times he'd walked away from trouble to protect himself. He hadn't known who she was. He hadn't needed to. He just knew no one deserved to starve in front of a food stall. "You're not some broken thing, Zahira," he said finally. "You're not a price tag. You're not a slave. You're someone who's still standing after hell tried to break you." Zahira's lip trembled. "You make it sound so simple." "It is," Marcus said. "You're still here. That means you haven't given up." They moved quickly after that. The cargo room was no longer safe. Marcus took Zahira to an old ally, a medic named Kylo, who owed Marcus a life debt. Kylo was a robot with a rusted metal shell and a heart full of secrets. He patched up Zahira's wounds and gave them a new location to hide, an abandoned mining tunnel beneath the station. "No. Scanners work down there," Kylo said, "but it's cold, dark, and full of old ghosts." "Perfect," Marcus replied. As they prepared to leave, Kylo looked at Zahira. "You're not the first royal I've treated, but you're the first who said thank you." Zahira smiled softly. "Maybe I'm the only one who remembered how." As they walked into the tunnel, Marcus noticed something different. Zahira was standing taller, not like a princess, but like a survivor. She still had fear in her eyes, but there was strength too. And Marcus, who had walked alone for so long, realized something. This wasn't about saving her anymore. It was about standing with her. And whatever came next, they'd face it together. The mining tunnels beneath Orion Outpost 7 were cold, silent, and forgotten by time. Zahira and Marcus walked slowly, through the narrow paths lit only by his old wrist lamp. The air was thick with dust. Their footsteps echoed off the metal walls, reminding them that they were alone. At least for now. This place used to be full of workers, Marcus whispered. They pulled crystals from the rocks. Now it's just bones and echoes. Zahira clutched the cloak tighter around her body. Her face was calm, but her eyes stayed sharp. Since telling Marcus her story, something had changed in her. She was no longer just running to survive. Now she was running to fight back. They reached an old control room near the bottom of the shaft. Marcus scanned the door, still locked after all these years. With a few sparks and one good kick, it creaked open. Inside, broken screens blinked weakly. Dusty chairs, cracked data pads, and a rusted map of the mine filled the room. This will work, Marcus said. We'll rest here for a while. Zahira sat on a crate. You really think we can clear my name? We're not clearing your name, Marcus replied. We're erasing the bounty. They don't own you. And if we take down the system behind it, they'll never find you again. Zahira looked away. The bounty, it's not just for being a runaway. There's more. Marcus turned to her. What do you mean? She hesitated, then whispered. I stole something from the last slaver ship before I escaped, a data crystal. Marcus raised an eyebrow. What's on it? I don't know exactly, but the man who owned it, he called it insurance. I think it holds names, maybe powerful people who bought royal captives like me. If it gets out, it could bring down an empire. Marcus leaned back slowly. That's why they want you alive. Zahira nodded. And why they'll never stop. Suddenly, Marcus's wrist lamp blinked twice. Motion sensor activated. Someone was down in the tunnel. Marcus stood, weapon ready. Stay behind me. Zahira grabbed a metal rod from the floor. Not this time. The footsteps came closer, slow, deliberate, and heavy. Then, silence, and then, a low metallic growl. From the shadows stepped a tall figure in black armor, face hidden by a glass mask. The visor glowed red. On his chest was a mark, a private hunter symbol. Krell, a bounty hunter so deadly. People whispered his name like a curse. He didn't speak. He simply raised his weapon. Marcus fired first. The shot hit Krell's chest and bounced off. The hunter stepped forward. Zahira screamed, swinging the metal rod. It hit Krell's leg but barely moved him. Krell grabbed her by the arm and lifted her off the ground. Marcus charged, slamming into him with full force. All three of them crashed into a pile of crates. The room shook. Marcus punched, kicked, and rolled, but Krell was too strong. Just when it seemed over, Zahira shoved the glowing crystal into Krell's visor. Crack! The crystal burst with light, blue energy flashing. Krell screamed as sparks flew from his helmet. He dropped Zahira and stumbled backward, smashing into the wall. Marcus pulled her up and shouted, "Run!" They ran through the tunnels, breathing hard. The light from Marcus's lamp shook with every step. Behind them, Krell's roar echoed through the darkness. "He's not human," Zahira gasped. "No," Marcus said. "He's part machine, probably enhanced to hunt faster, longer." They reached an old lift and jumped inside. Marcus slammed the control button. Nothing. The lift was dead. He looked at the wiring panel and groaned. Manual override. He opened it and began hot wiring the circuit. Zahira kept watch with the metal. Rod in hand, Krell's red visor appeared at the end of the tunnel. He was walking toward them, slow but unstoppable. "Marcus," Zahira shouted. Almost got it. Krell raised his weapon. Zahira stood in front of Marcus. The hunter fired. Boom! The energy bolt struck the wall beside her, throwing both of them down. Then, the lift powered on. Marcus pulled Zahira inside and slammed the gate shut. The platform rose just as Krell reached the edge. He stared up at them in silence, then vanished into the shadows. Back on the surface level, Marcus and Zahira collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. "You saved my life," Marcus said, looking at her. "You saved mine first?" Zahira replied. They both laughed. But it was tired laughter, heavy with fear and fire. Marcus looked at the cracked remains of the data crystal. Even broken, there's still data inside. We get this decoded, and we bring down whoever put your name on that list. Zahira nodded. Then, let's make them afraid of us for once. The lowest level of Orion Outpost 7 had no lights. They called it the furnace, not because it was hot, but because it was where souls were burned. Slavers, criminals, and black market kings ruled this part of the station. No laws, no mercy. And tonight the hidden slave auction was full. Inside a large hall carved from scrap metal and rusted steel, hundreds of aliens gathered. Their eyes glowed in the dark as they whispered prices and laughed at pain. In the center stood a glowing glass cage. Inside that cage was a young alien boy, scared, shaking. Up for sale, a voice echoed through the chamber. Tonight, rare merchandise will be shown. A fallen royal, a creature once praised in velvet and gold, now yours for the right price. Cheers filled the room. The crowd didn't know it yet, but the real show was just beginning. Up above, hidden in the ceiling vents, Marcus and Zahira waited quietly. Marcus wore black body armor taken from a dead bounty hunter. Zahira wore a hooded cloak, her features masked by a data haze chip. They had one goal: shut down the auction and erase every slave listing, including hers. I still can't believe you came back here, Zahira whispered. Marcus smirked. I've done crazier things for worse people. Zahira smiled faintly. I thought I'd never come back here again, but I'm tired of hiding. She pulled a small device from her belt. This will upload the crystal's remaining data to every terminal in this sector. If the slavers' buyer lists go public, they're finished. Marcus nodded. Let's give them a night they'll never forget. Down below, the auctioneer raised his hand. Prepare the main prize. But before the next cage could open, the lights exploded. Sparks flew. Screams echoed. Then a voice came through the loudspeaker. Not robotic. Not programmed. It was Zahira. You sold me once. You caged me like an animal, but I lived. And now, I will break every chain you've built. Gasps, a moment of silence. Then every screen in the hall lit up with names. Thousands of slave listings, buyers, and transactions. Hidden faces, corrupt leaders. Powerful families all exposed. Panic spread like fire. Then the roof exploded. Marcus dropped in first, weapon raised. Zahira followed, landing like a falling star. The crowd screamed and scattered. Some drew weapons, others ran. The slavers tried to lock the doors. Too late. Marcus took the high ground, firing warning shots. Zahira walked straight toward the auctioneer, head high, eyes glowing. He stepped back, trembling. You were supposed to be... She silenced him with a punch to the jaw. One slaver charged her with a blade. She spun, dodged, and used his own momentum to throw him into a wall. Another aimed a rifle at her back, but Marcus shot it clean. Out of his hands, they moved together, a perfect rhythm. Not trained, but connected. Zahira reached the control panel and activated the main release switch. Cages began opening one by one. The boy from earlier ran into her arms, crying. You're free, she said gently. Go, you're all free. Dozens of enslaved aliens rushed toward the exits, helped by refugees who had once been too scared to fight. But now, they had hope. Suddenly, the ground shook. Krell had arrived. He burst through the side wall like a monster, sparks flying from his cracked helmet. The crowd parted. Zahira stepped forward. Zahira. Not this time. Marcus blocked her path. Let me. No, she said. We. Together they faced him. Krell raised his heavy blaster. Marcus moved left. Zahira right. Krell fired. Zahira jumped, landing on his back, stabbing a plasma blade into his armor. Marcus rolled under, pulling a wire from his belt and wrapping it around Krell's leg. Now! Zahira pressed her finger to the relic crystal still clipped at her waist. It glowed. Krell's body sparked. He screamed, exploded in a burst of smoke and fire. The room went silent. Zahira stood in the ashes of her fear. Around her, others stared, not at a fallen slave, but at a rising leader. Marcus walked up beside her. Well, now what? She looked at the ruined stage. At sunrise, I'm not going to run anymore. I'm going to fight. Marcus smiled. Good. I was getting tired of sneaking around. By the next morning, the slave market was gone. In its place stood hundreds of free beings, scared, yes, but unchained. And in the center of it all stood Zahira, no longer forgotten, but followed. Smoke still hung in the air. The slave market was no more. The cages were broken, the chains had been turned into scrap, and the names of every buyer and slaver had been broadcast across half the galaxy. But victory had a cost. Marcus lay on the cold floor, bleeding. His left side had taken the full shockwave when Krell exploded. His armor was burned. His breathing was slow, labored. Blood ran from a deep gash along his ribs. Zahira knelt beside him, panic rising in her chest. Stay with me, she whispered. Please don't go quiet. Marcus smiled weakly. Don't worry, I'm too stubborn to die. Then don't be brave. Be alive, she said, tearing her cloak to wrap around his side. Nearby, a small group of former slaves watched silently. Some cried, some prayed. They didn't know what would happen now. Zahira turned to them. We need help. He saved all of you. Someone, anyone, bring me medical gear, tools, anything. A young girl ran. An old man handed her a bottle of biofoam. A small alien boy clutched a medkit. Zahira worked fast. She had no medical training, but her hands didn't shake. Her fear was locked away. She had made a choice. This time, she would not lose someone she loved. Hours passed. They found a safe space in an old shipping tunnel. It wasn't perfect, but it was hidden and dry. The injured were brought there. Children, elders, refugees who had been trapped for years. And Marcus. He lay on a blanket, sleeping, breath shallow. Zahira sat by his side, refusing to move. She watched, his face. Even in pain, he looked peaceful, like he believed in her. Her thoughts drifted, not to her past, but to the future. What would she do if he didn't wake up? Would she keep running? Would she fight? A quiet voice inside her whispered, You already know. That night, she stepped outside the tunnel. The stars above blinked, cold and far. She looked up, not as a beggar or a captive, but as a woman who had broken a system. Someone stepped beside her. It was Kalo, the old rusted robot medic. He's strong, Kalo said, but his body is fighting hard. It may not win. Zahira didn't answer. You did more than survive, Kalo continued. You gave hope to people who had forgotten how to speak. Zahira turned to him. Hope doesn't stop bullets. No, Kalo said, but it makes people stand, even when they're afraid. The next morning, Zahira stood before the rescued crowd. Many of them were still scared, still unsure. She took a breath and raised her voice. I know what it feels like to be thrown away, she said. To be treated like you're worth less than food. I lived in shadows, I begged. I offered my body just to eat, and none of you should ever have to do that again. The people listened, silent. She pointed to Marcus, still unconscious nearby. This man, this human, didn't ask for payment. He didn't care who I was. He gave me food, he gave me safety, and he believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Her voice shook now. I'm not a princess anymore. I'm not royalty. I'm not perfect. But I'm free. And if you stand with me, we will make sure no one else suffers like we did. A pause. Then someone clapped. Then another. Then many. And suddenly she wasn't standing in front of them. She was standing with them. That evening, a soft voice broke her thoughts. Still giving speeches, Zahira turned around. Marcus was awake, propped up, pale but smiling. She rushed to him, kneeling, grabbing his hand. You idiot, you scared me. He chuckled. That's what I'm here for. She touched his face. Don't ever do that again. No promises, he whispered. Saving the galaxy is kind of dangerous. Zahira leaned close. You're not saving the galaxy alone anymore. We're doing it together. He looked into her eyes. You really mean that? I do. And for the first time since the war destroyed her world, Zahira knew who she was. Not a royal, not a runaway, not a victim, but a voice, a flame, a fighter. The sun rose slowly over Orion Outpost 7. Not the real sun, just a flickering artificial light mimicking dawn. But for the first time in a long time, it felt like a real sunrise. Inside the old shipping tunnel, more than 100 freed slaves were packing bags, checking wounded, and whispering to each other, not in fear but in hope. They were no longer prisoners. They were survivors. And at the center of it all stood Zahira, no longer in hiding. Her cloak flowed behind her like a banner. Her face was uncovered. The glowing data mask was gone. She stood tall beside Marcus, who leaned on a crutch, his side still bandaged but his grin unshaken. You sure you want to do this? He asked her softly. Zahira nodded. If we stay here, more bounty hunters will come. Krell was only one of many. We need a place to start over. Marcus looked at the people gathering behind them, old, young, weak, strong, but all waiting for someone to lead. You really think we can build something new? He asked. She smiled. We don't need to build an empire, just a place where no one's for sale. By mid-morning, they moved through a hidden transport corridor. One Kalo had uncovered in old blueprints. It connected to an abandoned spaceport just outside the outpost's radar zone. There, rusted ships waited like forgotten dreams. Zahira climbed into a medium-sized freighter called the Ashwind. Can it fly? She asked. Kalo's robotic fingers tapped across the control pad. With a little love and a lot of hope. Marcus smirked. We have both. They left the station that day. No goodbyes, no news crews, no warships chasing them, just silence and freedom. As the stars opened around them, Zahira stared out of the window at the galaxy beyond. So many planets, so many broken people. She turned to Marcus. Let's find them. Days passed. They flew from one backwater moon to another, helping small groups, feeding the hungry, teaching the lost how to rise again. Each time they saved someone, Zahira added a name to a growing list she called the New Registry. Not a list of property, not of prisoners, but of people, reclaiming their names. One night, while orbiting a quiet blue planet, Zahira stood alone on the ship's viewing deck. She watched the stars. Marcus joined her, silent for a moment. Then he spoke. You never stop moving. I'm afraid if I do, I'll fall apart, she admitted. You won't, he said. You're stronger than anyone I've ever met. Zahira turned to him. Do you regret saving me? Never, he said without pause. I only regret not finding you sooner. She looked down. I used to think kindness was a weakness. It's not, Marcus said. It's a weapon, a better one than any gun. Zahira reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. They stood together, in the quiet, two scarred souls no longer running from their past, but building something better. In the months that followed, the ship became more than a vessel. It became a haven. More joined them. Refugees, ex-slaves, even a few former bounty hunters who had turned away from the system they once served. Together, they created a floating community called the Unbound. No flags, no rulers, just people helping people. Zahira became their heart, Marcus their shield. One day, a young girl asked Zahira, "Were you really a princess?" Zahira knelt down, smiled, and replied, "No, I was something far rarer. I was someone who refused to stay broken." The girl nodded. "Will I be strong too?" Zahira took her hand. "You already are." And so, the legend began. Not of a royal, not of a warrior, but of a starving alien woman who once offered her body for food, and found someone who offered her dignity instead. Together, They changed the meaning of freedom, one soul at a time.